Picture this. You're sitting at your desk, staring at a screen filled with unanswered emails, your phone buzzing with yet another notification, and the weight of a difficult conversation from earlier still hanging in the air. The stress feels like a knot in your chest, tightening with every passing minute. We've all been there, overwhelmed by the chaos of modern life, where emotions run high and balance seems just out of reach. But what if there was a way to step back, to find calm in the storm, to reclaim control not over the world around you, but over how you respond to it? This is where the ancient wisdom of Stoicism shines, offering timeless techniques to master emotional detachment and achieve unshakable inner balance. Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Those words, written nearly 2,000 years ago, hold a startling relevance today. They remind us that while we can't always control what happens to us, we can always control how we react, and that shift in perspective, from reacting to choosing, is the foundation of emotional resilience. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions or becoming indifferent to life. It's about clarity, seeing what's truly within your power and letting go of what isn't. Think of it like this. Imagine you're caught in heavy rain. You can't stop the rain, but you can choose to put on a coat or carry an umbrella. The rain is the external event. Your response is your umbrella. This simple but profound idea, the dichotomy of control, is one of the core techniques we'll explore. It teaches us to focus our energy only on what we can influence, freeing us from the frustration of trying to change the unchangeable. Alongside this, we'll delve into practices like negative visualization, where you prepare mentally for challenges before they arise, not out of fear, but to build gratitude and resilience. These aren't just philosophical concepts, they're practical tools tested by time and refined by generations of Stoics who faced adversity with remarkable poise. So why does this matter now in our fast-paced, hyper-connected world? Because the challenges we face today, stress, uncertainty, conflict, aren't so different from those faced by the Stoics of ancient Rome. The difference is they had a system to navigate them with grace, and that system is just as powerful now as it was then. Over the course of this video, we'll walk through these techniques step by step, showing you how to apply them in everyday situations, whether it's a heated argument, a crushing workload, or the anxiety of the unknown. This isn't about escaping emotion. It's about understanding it, working with it, and ultimately mastering it. By the end, you'll have a toolkit to face life's turbulence not with frustration, but with calm, clarity, and a deeper sense of control. The journey starts here with a single question. What if the key to peace wasn't changing the world around you, but changing how you see it? Emotional detachment in Stoicism might sound like shutting off your feelings or becoming indifferent to the world around you, but that couldn't be further from the truth. The Stoics weren't advocating for emotional numbness, they were teaching emotional mastery. Think of it like sailing. Detachment isn't about ignoring the wind or the waves, it's about adjusting your sails so you can navigate them without being capsized. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's greatest teachers, put it simply, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." His words highlight the core idea, distinguishing between what's within your control, your thoughts, reactions, and choices, and what isn't, other people's actions, external events, even the past. This distinction is where true emotional freedom begins. Take criticism, for example. Imagine someone harshly judges your work. The modern reflex might be to either lash out in anger or retreat into self-doubt. But Stoicism offers a third path, observing the criticism without letting it define you. You can't control what others say, but you can control whether you take it personally, whether you learn from it, or whether you simply let it pass like a cloud in the sky. This isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's the ability to feel the sting without letting it poison your peace. This is where many people misunderstand Stoic detachment. Modern culture often equates emotional strength with either suppressing feelings or drowning in them. The Stoics proposed something radically different, feeling deeply but choosing wisely. Anger, fear, even grief, these aren't enemies to be eradicated. They're signals pointing to what we value. The goal isn't to avoid emotions but to engage with them consciously so they don't steer you off course. So here's a question to reflect on. When was the last time an outside event, a rude comment, a missed opportunity, a sudden change of plans shook your equilibrium? How might viewing it through the lens of Stoic detachment have changed your response? Not by denying your feelings, but by granting you the space to decide how much power they should hold. That's the real gift of emotional detachment, not less feeling but more freedom. The dichotomy of control is like a mental filter, one that separates the chaos of life into two simple categories: what you can change and what you can't. This principle, central to Stoic philosophy, isn't just theoretical. It's a practical tool for cutting through stress and reclaiming peace. Seneca, the Roman philosopher, put it beautifully in his letters: "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." He wasn't dismissing life's challenges, he was pointing to a profound truth. Much of our anxiety comes from fighting battles we were never meant to win, trying to control the uncontrollable. Think about a traffic jam. You didn't cause it, you can't clear it, and honking your horn won't make it move faster. The Stoic approach: recognize that the jam is outside your control, but your reaction, whether you fume silently or use the time to listen to a podcast, is entirely yours to choose. This shift in focus from external chaos to internal clarity is where real freedom begins. It's not about giving up. It's about redirecting your energy where it actually matters. Now consider the things that weigh on you daily. Maybe it's a coworker's criticism, a delayed flight, or the weather ruining your weekend plans. The Stoics would urge you to ask one question: is this within my power? If the answer is no, then pouring mental energy into it is like shouting at the wind, exhausting and pointless. But if it is within your control, like how you prepare for a meeting or how you speak to a loved one during an argument, that's where your attention should live. Here's a challenge: grab a piece of paper and list 3 things that recently stirred up worry or frustration. Then draw a line down the center, on one side right within my control, and on the other outside my control. Seeing this dichotomy in black and white can be startling. You'll likely notice how much mental space is wasted on the right column, the things you'll never command. But here's the liberating part: the left column, that's your domain. That's where your power lies, where your choices shape your life. The Stoics didn't just preach this idea, they lived it. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet his personal writings reveal a man focused not on the chaos of politics, but on his own virtue, his own reactions. This practice isn't about passivity, it's about precision. It's training yourself to stop wrestling with immovable objects and start investing in what you can actually influence: your mindset, your efforts, your character. The next time you feel tension rising, pause and ask, is this mine to solve? If not, let it go like a leaf floating down a river. If it is, act with intention. That's the essence of emotional balance: not controlling the world, but mastering your place within it. Negative visualization, or Premeditatio Malorum, as the Stoics called it, might sound counterintuitive at first. Why would anyone willingly imagine worst-case scenarios? But this practice isn't about dwelling on fear, it's about disarming it. Seneca, who faced exile and political turmoil, wrote, "He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand." What he meant was this: when you mentally rehearse challenges before they happen, you strip them of their ability to shock or paralyze you. It's like shining a light into the shadows. The unknown loses its power over you. Picture someone terrified of public speaking. Instead of avoiding the fear, negative visualization asks them to lean into it. What's the worst that could happen? Forgetting their lines, the audience laughing, sitting down with those thoughts, really feeling them, does something remarkable. First, they realize the worst-case scenario isn't as catastrophic as their imagination painted it. Second, they start planning solutions, practicing more, keeping notes handy. By the time they step on stage, the fear has edges. It's manageable. That's the magic of this technique. It doesn't just prepare you for adversity. It reveals how much stronger you are than you assumed. Now apply this to modern life. Imagine you're worried about losing your job. Instead of letting that anxiety gnaw at you in the background, take 5 minutes to sit with it. Visualize the layoff notice, the shock, the financial pressure. But don't stop there. Ask yourself, what would I do next? Update my resume, reach out to my network. Cut non-essential expenses. Suddenly, the monster under the bed has a shape, and you've already started mapping your way around it. This isn't pessimism, it's preparedness. The Stoics weren't suggesting you live in constant dread. They were teaching you to rehearse life storms so you could dance in the rain when they arrived. Here's the key distinction. Negative visualization isn't about predicting the future. It's about expanding your sense of agency within it. Think of a fire drill. No one expects the building to burn down, but practicing the exit routes means you won't panic if the alarm sounds. That's the resilience this builds. When you've already walked through a challenge in your mind, the real thing feels less like an ambush and more like terrain you've studied. So try it now. Pick one current worry, a strained relationship, a health concern, a financial squeeze, and give it 5 minutes of deliberate, structured visualization. First, imagine the worst unfolding in detail. Then ask, how would I respond? What resources do I have? Who could I lean on? You'll likely notice 2 shifts. The fear feels smaller and you feel more capable. That's Stoic resilience in action, not avoiding life's uncertainties, but meeting them with open eyes and a steady heart. After all, the goal isn't to control every outcome. It's to trust yourself to handle whatever comes. Amor Fati, Latin for love of fate, isn't about passive resignation or pretending life's hardships don't sting. It's about embracing every twist, every setback, as if you'd chosen it yourself. Friedrich Nietzsche, who admired the Stoics, called it his formula for greatness, not just enduring what life throws at you, but loving it, no longer hiding it from yourself, no longer wishing to hide it. Marcus Aurelius echoed this centuries earlier. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. These weren't empty platitudes, they were survival tools forged in the fires of real adversity. Consider the story of Musonius Rufus, a Stoic philosopher exiled to a barren Greek island by Emperor Nero. Instead of crumbling, he treated exile as an opportunity, teaching philosophy to locals, farming the rocky soil, even declaring the island healthier than Rome's smog. When asked if he missed home, he replied, "Wherever I am sent, that is my country." That's Amor Fati in action, not just accepting fate but finding purpose in it. His hardship didn't vanish, but his relationship to it transformed. The obstacle became the path. Now bring this into your own life. Think of a moment when life veered off script, a job loss, a breakup, an illness. At the time, it likely felt like a derailment. But what if you saw it as Musonius did, as a hidden assignment? Maybe that breakup pushed you to rediscover passions you'd neglected. Maybe the job loss forced you to build a skill that later became your calling. Amor Fati flips the narrative. Life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. The key lies in asking, what can this teach me, rather than, why did this happen to me? This mindset doesn't erase pain, but it alchemizes it. Imagine two people caught in the same storm. One curses the rain, the other plants seeds in the wet soil. Both get soaked, but only one grows something. Nietzsche's insight was that suffering isn't the enemy, meaninglessness is. When you stop resisting reality and start engaging with it, even the sharpest edges can polish you. So try this reframe today. Pick one past struggle, something that once felt like a betrayal by life. Now write down 3 ways it shaped you, a strength you gained, a lesson you learned, a door you'd never have opened otherwise. That's Amor Fati at work. It's not about denying the darkness, it's about recognizing that even the night sky has stars. As Marcus Aurelius whispered to himself in his private journals, the blazing fire makes flames and brightness out of everything thrown into it. Your challenges aren't exceptions to a good life, they're the raw materials of it. There's a reason astronauts who have seen Earth from space often return with a radical shift in perspective, what they call the overview effect. Suddenly, political borders vanish, personal grudges seem absurd, and the planet becomes a fragile, interconnected whole. The Stoics practiced a version of this mental shift centuries before space travel, calling it the view from above. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, "Look at the stars as if you were running alongside them," reminding himself that human dramas are fleeting against the backdrop of time and space. This isn't about dismissing your struggles, it's about contextualizing them. When you feel trapped by a problem, zooming out can reveal how small it truly is in the grand scheme, not to minimize your pain, but to liberate you from its grip. Take social media envy as an example. Scrolling through curated highlight reels of others' lives can leave you feeling inadequate, like you're falling behind in some invisible race. Now try the view from above. Picture those same people not as rivals, but as tiny specks on a spinning planet, all equally fragile, all searching for meaning. That vacation photo, a fleeting moment in a life as brief and bright as a match strike. The promotion someone bragged about, a speck of dust in the cosmic timeline. This exercise isn't meant to make life feel meaningless, it's designed to make your anxieties feel manageable. When you see yourself as part of something vast, the things that once consumed you start to shrink to their true size. Here's how to practice this today. Close your eyes and imagine rising above your current worry, a conflict at work, a financial stress, a hurtful comment like a camera pulling back from a scene. See your street from rooftop height, then your city from the clouds, then the earth as a blue marble hanging in space. Notice how the details that felt urgent an hour ago now blur into the bigger picture. Marcus Aurelius did this daily, writing, "How quickly all things vanish, their bodies into the universe, their memories into time." He wasn't denying his responsibilities, he was grounding himself in reality. Your stressors haven't disappeared, but your relationship to them has shifted. You're no longer stuck inside the storm, you're the sky holding it. The magic of this technique lies in its dual effect. It humbles and empowers simultaneously. Humbles because it reminds you that your worst day is a drop in the ocean of human experience. Empowers because it reveals that you're part of something far greater than any single setback. Try pairing it with a simple ritual, maybe each morning while your coffee brews or each night before sleep. Ask, will this matter in a year, in a decade? To the universe, the answers might surprise you. After all, the stars overhead tonight are the same ones Marcus Aurelius gazed at, and they'll outlive every problem you'll ever face. That's the gift of the view from above, not escape from life, but clarity within it. Imagine ending each day not with a mind cluttered by unfinished tasks or unresolved emotions, but with clarity, a clear-eyed understanding of what moved you forward and what held you back. This was the power Marcus Aurelius harnessed through his journaling practice, scribbling wisdom to himself in the quiet hours of night. Those private pages, later known as meditations, weren't meant for publication. They were his mirror, a tool to examine his thoughts, correct his course, and cultivate emotional resilience. Seneca captured the essence of this practice when he wrote, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said." That nightly ritual, brutally honest yet compassionate, became his compass. Stoic journaling isn't about venting or dwelling on regrets. It's structured reflection, a way to distill wisdom from experience. Here's how to begin. First, carve out 10 minutes at day's end, no screens, no distractions. Then divide your page into 3 prompts. Start with what went well. This isn't just gratitude light. It's active recognition of moments you exercised virtue, maybe patience during a frustrating call, or courage in speaking up. Next, what could improve? Not self-flagellation, but clear-eyed assessment. Did you react defensively to feedback? Let a trivial annoyance steal your peace. Finally, lessons learned. This is where you connect the dots. Today showed me that preparation eases anxiety, or interrupting others stems from my own need to be heard. Marcus Aurelius modeled this with entries like, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant." Not to judge others, but to prepare himself to meet them with kindness anyway. His journal was a rehearsal space for virtue, where he could confront his flaws privately before facing the world. Try this experiment. Commit to 7 nights of Stoic journaling. On night 1, you might scribble surface reactions. Traffic made me furious. By night 7, you'll likely notice deeper patterns. My anger in traffic mirrors my fear of wasted time. That shift from blaming externals to owning your responses is the heart of emotional mastery. One caution: avoid turning this into a productivity hack or a to-do list in disguise. The goal isn't to fix yourself overnight, but to cultivate awareness. Seneca warned, "Men are cruel to themselves. They act like overseers, demanding an accounting of the day." That's not the tone you want. Approach your journal as a wise friend, one who tells the truth, but with kindness. So tonight, before sleep, ask yourself, what if these pages became the soil where your emotional resilience takes root? Not every entry will be profound, but over time, you'll spot something remarkable. The storms that once capsized you now rock the boat less. Because when you meet your mind on paper regularly, you stop being ruled by the chaos within it. Cognitive distancing is like stepping back from a painting to see the whole canvas, rather than pressing your nose against the brushstrokes. The Stoics called this the Inner Citadel, a mental fortress where you observe your thoughts and emotions without being consumed by them. Epictetus described it as the space between stimulus and response, that crucial moment where freedom resides. Imagine receiving an email that makes your pulse quicken, a colleague taking credit for your work, or a friend's passive-aggressive tone. The immediate urge might be to fire off a heated reply, but cognitive distancing asks you to pause, as if watching that reaction from a balcony above. "I notice I feel anger rising," you might say silently, labeling the emotion without becoming it. That slight shift from "I am angry" to "I feel anger" changes everything. One phrase traps you in the storm, the other reminds you that you're the sky holding it. Think of it like this: your mind is a theater, and your thoughts are actors on a stage. Cognitive distancing is the act of moving from the front row, where the drama feels real and urgent, to the back of the balcony, where you see the performance for what it is, a temporary play. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly, writing, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." He wasn't suggesting we eliminate emotions, but rather that we stop letting them dye us so completely. When frustration flares, instead of thinking, "This person ruined my day," try, "I'm having the thought that this person ruined my day." That tiny linguistic gap creates room for choice. Here's how to apply this today. Next time you're triggered, a rude comment, a cancelled plan, a looming deadline, practice the 3-step pause. First, name the emotion silently. Frustration is here. Second, locate it physically. Is your jaw clenched, your stomach tight? Third, ask, is this feeling serving me or controlling me? This isn't about suppressing the emotion. It's about relating to it differently. Like a parent comforting a child's tantrum, you acknowledge the feeling without letting it dictate your actions. Epictetus' Inner Citadel isn't a place of cold detachment. It's a sanctuary of clarity. Picture a medieval castle with thick walls. Outside, the chaos of battle rages, insults, setbacks, unpredictability. Inside, at the center, sits the calm observer, your highest self. The walls don't keep life out. They give you space to respond wisely instead of reacting blindly. That's the power of cognitive distancing. It turns emotional wildfires into campfires, still warm but contained, manageable. Try this exercise before bed tonight. Recall one moment today when emotions took the wheel. Replay it, but this time watch it like a movie scene. What did the character of you feel in that moment? What might the director, your wiser self, have suggested instead? Over time, this practice rewires your reflexes. You'll start to notice anger or anxiety the way you notice weather, something passing through your atmosphere, not defining it. As Marcus Aurelius put it, the things you think about determine the quality of your mind. Cognitive distancing lets you choose those thoughts rather than being chosen by them. The discipline of assent is like having a mental gatekeeper, one that doesn't let every passing thought or emotion barge in uninvited. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who began life as a slave, put it starkly, "Men are disturbed not by things but by the views they take of them." He wasn't saying that hardships don't sting. He was pointing to a radical truth. Our suffering often comes not from the event itself, but from our unchecked assumptions about it. Imagine scrolling through social media and seeing a friend's post that feels like a subtle dig at you. Your first impulse might be to bristle with anger or spiral into self-doubt. But the discipline of assent asks you to pause at the gate of your mind and ask, is this interpretation true, or is it just one possible story I'm telling myself? That split-second interrogation can mean the difference between a heated reply you'll regret and a calm response that leaves your peace intact. Think of your mind as a courtroom where every impression, every thought, every emotion is a witness taking the stand. Most of us let these witnesses testify unchallenged, accepting their statements as facts. The Stoics, though, taught us to cross-examine them. When frustration flares because your train is delayed, instead of instantly believing the thought, "This ruins my day," you become the skeptical judge. Does this delay truly have the power to ruin 8 waking hours? Or am I granting it that power? This isn't about positive thinking, it's about accurate thinking. It's recognizing that between what happens and how you feel about it, there's a space, and in that space lies your freedom. Here's how to practice this today. Pick a minor annoyance, a slow-moving line at the coffee shop, a misplaced set of keys, a rainy afternoon. When the irritation arises, don't suppress it. Instead, delay your reaction by 10 seconds. In that pause, dissect the thought behind the emotion. Ask, is this inconvenience truly bad or just inconvenient? Is my reaction proportional? You'll often find that the story you're telling yourself, "This always happens to me, the universe is against me," is far more dramatic than the reality. Epictetus called these unchecked impressions, hasty assents, the mental equivalent of signing a contract without reading the fine print, the modern parallel. Treating your thoughts like breaking news alerts. Just because a notification pops up doesn't mean it's factual or urgent. The discipline of assent teaches you to fact-check your own mind. Someone cuts you off in traffic and your brain screams, "What a jerk," but what if that driver is rushing to the hospital? What if they didn't see you? The event, the lane change, is neutral. The judgment, "They're rude," is optional. This isn't about excusing bad behavior. It's about refusing to let strangers dictate your emotional weather. Try an experiment. For one day, carry a small notebook or use your phone's notes app to log 3 hasty assents at times when you reacted to an impression before questioning it. Maybe you assumed a coworker's short reply meant they were angry with you, only to learn they were battling a migraine. Or you cursed the weather for ruining your walk, then noticed how the rain made the air smell like earth. Each time you catch yourself, rewrite the narrative. "I thought X, but maybe Y is also true." This simple act trains your mind to default to curiosity rather than certainty, to openness rather than defensiveness. What makes this discipline so powerful is its ripple effect. When you stop conflating impressions with truths, you stop handing over your happiness to external events. Marcus Aurelius, despite ruling an empire, wrote reminders to himself like, "Today I shall be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness." Notice he didn't say these things wouldn't bother him. He was preparing to question his knee-jerk reactions to them. That's the heart of the practice, not immunity to life's friction, but the ability to walk through it without collecting splinters. So the next time a thought or emotion knocks at your mind's door, remember, you're the gatekeeper. You get to ask for credentials before letting it in. Because while you can't control every impression that arrives, you always control which ones you entertain. And that's where real emotional resilience begins, not in changing what happens, but in changing what you consent to believe about it. Stoic indifference often gets misunderstood as cold detachment, as if the goal were to stop caring about anything outside yourself. But the ancient Stoics meant something far more nuanced and far more liberating. Picture Seneca writing to his friend Lucilius, "We are not given control over the dice, but we are given control over how to play them." That's the heart of Stoic indifference, not ignoring externals, but refusing to let them dictate your worth or peace. Imagine two people up for the same promotion. One ties their self-esteem entirely to the outcome, while the other focuses on delivering their best work, regardless of the result. Both want the promotion, but only one has anchored their happiness to it. That's the difference between healthy ambition and emotional dependency, between playing the game well and needing a trophy to feel whole. This philosophy isn't about rejecting material comforts or achievements. The Stoics weren't ascetics. They enjoyed good food, art, and friendship. The key was remembering that these things are borrowed, not owned. Seneca, one of Rome's wealthiest men, kept a practice he called poverty training, regularly living for days with only bread, water, and a rough cloak. Not to punish himself, but to prove a point. What you don't need can't control you. He knew that luxury, like a comfortable chair, is pleasant until you realize you can't stand up without it. That's why Stoic indifference isn't apathy, it's freedom. Apathy says, "I don't care if I get promoted." Stoic indifference says, "I'll strive for the promotion, but my dignity isn't hanging in the balance." Consider how this applies to modern life. Maybe you've felt a pang of envy when a friend buys a house, or anxiety when your phone screen cracks. These reactions reveal where we've unconsciously handed over our autonomy to externals. The Stoics would urge you to interrogate that dependency. If I lose this job, this relationship, this possession, what remains of me? The answer should always be your character, your choices, your resilience, the things no external force can strip away. Here's a challenge. Pick one external you secretly rely on for happiness, your social media likes, your car's cleanliness, even your morning coffee. For a week, practice loosening its grip. If it's the coffee, skip it for 2 days. If it's the likes, post something without checking reactions. Notice what arises: the discomfort, the rationalizations, but I deserve this. The fear of losing a tiny pleasure, that's the muscle of indifference being stretched. You're not learning to enjoy less, you're proving to yourself that you can. The ultimate test of this practice comes when life forces it upon you. Seneca lost his wealth, his status, even his son, yet wrote, "No man loses anything by death but the present moment." That's not resignation, it's redefining what loss really means. Your phone breaks, annoying but not catastrophic. A project fails, disappointing but not defining. The more you practice this mental separation between what happens and what it means about you, the lighter you'll feel. Because real freedom isn't owning everything you want, it's wanting nothing you can't walk away from. So ask yourself, what's one external you've accidentally made a pillar of your identity? And what might change if you saw it for what it is, a temporary guest in your life, not the foundation of it? That shift from clinging to choosing is where Stoic indifference becomes not just a philosophy, but a way of living. The art of voluntary discomfort might sound like a contradiction. Why would anyone choose hardship when modern life offers endless comforts? But the Stoics saw it as a kind of mental vaccination, small doses of adversity to strengthen your resilience against life's inevitable blows. Take Cato the Younger, the Roman senator who famously slept on hard floors even though he owned a lavish estate. His contemporaries thought it eccentric, but Cato understood something profound. Comfort, when unchallenged, becomes a cage. By voluntarily stepping into discomfort, he was proving to himself that his peace didn't depend on external conditions. Seneca put it bluntly: set aside a certain number of days to eat only the plainest food, wear your roughest clothes, and ask yourself, is this what I used to dread? This practice isn't about punishing yourself or romanticizing suffering. It's about reclaiming agency. Think of it like lifting weights. The discomfort of the gym isn't the goal, the strength it builds is. Modern equivalents are everywhere: skipping the snooze button when you crave extra sleep, taking a cold shower on a winter morning, or leaving your phone at home during a walk. These small acts aren't just tests of willpower, they're reminders that you're more adaptable than you think. When you willingly face minor discomforts, the larger ones, a job loss, a health scare, a rejection, lose their power to paralyze you. Consider how this plays out in daily life. You're at a restaurant with friends and everyone orders dessert. The voluntary discomfort, saying no, not because you're dieting, but to prove to yourself that pleasure is a choice, not a compulsion. Or imagine waking up 30 minutes earlier to meditate or journal, trading the warmth of your blanket for the clarity of stillness. These aren't acts of deprivation, they're declarations of freedom. The Stoics knew that luxury, when unchecked, breeds fragility. A life without any discomfort is like a body without calluses, vulnerable to the slightest friction. Here's the challenge: pick one small discomfort to embrace this week. It could be as simple as skipping caffeine for a day, walking instead of driving, or having a conversation without checking your phone. Notice what arises: the impatience, the rationalizations, the itch to retreat to ease. Then notice something else: the quiet confidence that comes from realizing you could handle far more than you imagined. That's the hidden gift of this practice. It's not about the cold shower or the missed meal. It's about the unshakable truth you uncover, that your peace was never in the comfort to begin with. It was always in you. The next time life forces discomfort upon you, a delayed flight, a power outage, a broken air conditioner, you'll have a choice: to grumble like someone who's forgotten their own resilience, or to smile like someone who's trained for this moment. Because voluntary discomfort isn't just preparation for adversity. It's the discovery that you were never as fragile as you feared. As Epictetus, born into slavery, would later teach, difficulty shows what men are. What will your small struggles show you? Memento Mori, Latin for remember you must die, isn't some morbid obsession with the end. It's a wake-up call, a tool the Stoics used to sharpen their focus on what truly matters. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor who ruled Rome at its peak, wrote in his private journal, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." At first glance, that might sound dark, but sit with it a moment. Imagine carrying that awareness lightly, like a compass in your pocket, gently nudging you away from trivial distractions and toward what's meaningful. The Stoics didn't dwell on death to scare themselves. They did it to strip away illusions and live with urgency and gratitude. Consider how modern culture treats mortality like a distant rumor, something to be hidden behind euphemisms or avoided in conversation. We sanitize death, tuck it away in hospitals and funeral homes, as if pretending it won't happen to us. But the Stoics would argue this avoidance comes at a cost. When we refuse to acknowledge life's finiteness, we risk floating through days, deferring dreams, tolerating mediocrity in relationships, or wasting hours on things that don't align with our deepest values. Seneca put it bluntly, "It's not that we have too little time, but that we waste so much of it." Here's the paradox: confronting mortality doesn't shrink your life, it expands it. Think of a traveler with just one day in a foreign city. They don't waste time on trivialities. They savor every meal, every street corner, every conversation. That's the spirit of Memento Mori. It's not about fear, it's about focus. When you remember your time is limited, you stop postponing joy, stop clinging to grudges, stop waiting for someday to start that project or mend that rift. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. Amid the pressures of empire, he reminded himself, Alexander the Great and his mule driver both died the same end for both. Not to depress himself, but to level the playing field. Status, wealth, even legacy, none of it spares you from the same fate as everyone else. That realization can be liberating. If today were your last, would you still be obsessing over that passive-aggressive text, still putting off calling your sibling, still too afraid to launch the idea you've been nursing? Try this exercise now. Pause and write down 3 things you'd do differently if today were truly your last. Not grand, bucket list fantasies, real, tangible shifts. Maybe you'd finally apologize to that friend you've been too proud to call. Maybe you'd spend less time scrolling and more time listening to your kids' stories. Maybe you'd silence the inner critic that keeps you from creating. Notice what comes up. Those answers, they're your compass. They show you where your heart is when the noise fades away. The beauty of Memento Mori is that it doesn't require dramatic life changes, just clearer priorities. You don't have to quit your job or move across the world. You just have to stop acting like you have infinite tomorrows. The dishes can wait, the sunset can't. The meeting agenda isn't urgent. Telling someone, "I love you," is. This practice isn't about dying. It's about waking up to the life you're already living. As the Stoics knew, the awareness of an end isn't a shadow. It's the light that makes everything shine brighter. Sympathaea is the Stoic art of seeing your life as one thread in a vast, interconnected tapestry. an idea that dissolves the illusion of separation fueling so much of our stress. Marcus Aurelius described it as the harmony of the whole, this profound recognition that every person, every event, even every hardship, plays a part in a grander design. Picture an orchestra. The violin might protest that the trumpet's blast disrupts its delicate melody, but from the conductor's podium, both sounds blend into something richer than either could create alone. That's Sympathaea in action, the shift from seeing yourself as the soloist to recognizing you're part of the symphony. Take workplace tension as an example. That colleague who constantly challenges your ideas might feel like an obstacle, but through the lens of Sympathaea, they become the whetstones sharpening your thinking. Marcus Aurelius, who governed an empire riddled with political rivalries, wrote, "What injures the hive injures the bee." He wasn't denying conflict, he was reframing it. Your coworker isn't an outlier in your story, they're a co-author of it. This perspective doesn't erase friction, but it does drain the poison of personal resentment. After all, a tapestry needs both dark and light threads to reveal its full pattern. Modern life bombards us with messages that amplify separation, social media algorithms feeding our biases, news cycles profiting from division, even the way we silo our struggles as if no one else could understand. Sympathaea is the antidote. When you're stuck in traffic, instead of fuming at all these idiots on the road, consider that every driver is a universe of hopes and frustrations just like you. Parents rushing to daycare, students late for exams, nurses exhausted after double shifts. The traffic jam hasn't changed, but your relationship to it has. You're no longer an isolated victim, you're part of a collective human moment. Here's a practice to try. Next time a conflict arises, whether it's a spat with a partner or frustration with a stranger, pause and ask, how does this person mirror a part of life I've yet to accept? Maybe their stubbornness reflects your own resistance to change. Maybe their criticism highlights an area where you secretly doubt yourself. Sympathaea isn't about excusing poor behavior. It's about recognizing that every interaction is a dance of mutual shaping. Even the most grating encounters are life's way of sanding down your rough edges, if you let them. Marcus Aurelius took this further, urging himself to see even adversity as nature's medicine. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. When a project falls apart or a plan crumbles, Sympathaea invites you to look for the hidden choreography, the skills you're forced to develop, the humility you gain, the unforeseen doors that open precisely because others closed. This isn't mystical thinking, it's practical resilience. A forest fire destroys, but it also clears space for new growth. Your struggles aren't exceptions to a good life, they're the raw materials of it. So consider this: what if the very things you've been resisting, the difficult people, the unexpected setbacks, were perfectly placed to teach you what you couldn't learn any other way? How might loosening your grip on me versus them soften the edges of your daily battles? Sympathaea doesn't ask you to like every thread in the tapestry, only to trust that even the knotted ones have their place. And in that trust lies a rare kind of peace, the peace of knowing you're never truly alone, even in the storm. The Stoic pause is that crucial beat between provocation and response, the split second where you reclaim your power from raw emotion. Epictetus, who endured the brutality of slavery before becoming one of history's greatest philosophers, framed it simply: it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. He wasn't dismissing pain or injustice. He was highlighting the hidden freedom we all possess, the space to choose our next move. Picture this: you're driving home after a long day, and suddenly a car swerves into your lane, forcing you to slam the brakes. Your body floods with adrenaline, hands clenching the wheel, face flushing hot. The modern reflex, honking, yelling, maybe even tailgating to teach them a lesson. But the Stoic pause interrupts that script. Instead of erupting, you take one deliberate breath and silently say, "Stop." That single word isn't magic. It's a circuit breaker for your amygdala, creating just enough distance to ask, will this reaction improve my life or just my blood pressure? This practice isn't about bottling up emotions. It's about creating a buffer between stimulus and response, like a negotiator stepping in during a heated argument. Neuroscientists call this gap the psychological refractory period, a brief window where higher brain functions can override primal reactions. The Stoics discovered it 2 millennia ago. Marcus Aurelius, despite ruling an empire under constant threat, wrote reminders to himself like, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." He wasn't advocating passivity. He was training himself to respond from principle rather than impulse. Here's how to cultivate this habit today. Start small. Identify a low-stakes trigger, someone interrupting you in a meeting or your Wi-Fi slowing down. When the irritation flares, mentally whisper your pause word, "Stop." Pause, even Epictetus, if it makes you smile. Then visualize your anger or frustration as a physical object, a red balloon, a boiling kettle, something you can observe without being consumed by. That shift from "I am angry" to "I notice anger" changes everything. Over time, these micro-pauses rewire your reflexes. What once sparked a shouting match becomes a chance to exercise wisdom. The real test comes during life's bigger storms, a betrayal, a financial hit, a personal attack. But here's the secret: the pause works the same way. When a friend's careless remark stings, instead of firing back or withdrawing, hit that mental pause button. Ask yourself 3 questions. Is this truly harmful or just uncomfortable? What's the story I'm telling myself about their intent? What response aligns with my values? The answers won't erase the hurt, but they'll prevent you from amplifying it. Ancient Stoics used this technique to face exile and persecution. Today, it might help you navigate a toxic email or a toddler's tantrum. The scale changes, the principle doesn't. Emotions aren't the enemy, unchecked reactions are. So next time life cuts you off in traffic, remember, that driver didn't steal your peace, you handed it to them. The pause is how you take it back. Marcus Aurelius once scribbled in his journal, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." At first glance, that might sound like philosophical wordplay, but there's raw, practical power in those 11 words. The Stoics didn't just tolerate obstacles, they welcomed them as whetstones for the mind. Think of a blacksmith's forge. The hammer doesn't destroy the blade, it shapes it. Every strike, every searing heat is what transforms raw metal into something sharp and unbreakable. Your challenges, they're that hammer. Take a modern example. Imagine you spent months developing a project at work, researching, planning, pouring in late nights, only for leadership to cancel it abruptly. The initial reaction might be frustration, even shame, but the Stoic reframe asks, what did you gain in the process? Maybe you mastered a new software tool you'd been avoiding. Maybe you discovered a colleague's hidden talent during collaboration. Or perhaps the failure stripped away your fear of imperfection, teaching you to iterate rather than obsess. The project's death wasn't the end. It was the birth of skills and insights you'd never have unearthed otherwise. This mindset shift isn't about toxic positivity, pretending everything happens for some grand cosmic reason. It's about agency. When life hands you a boulder, you get to decide. Will it be a roadblock or raw material for building stairs? The ancient Stoics faced exile, war, and political persecution, yet they wrote about these trials with something close to gratitude. Not because they enjoyed suffering, but because they recognized adversity as the one teacher that never lies. Musonius Rufus, exiled to a barren island, didn't waste energy cursing his fate. He turned the rocky soil into a classroom, teaching philosophy to locals and proving that influence isn't tied to location. Here's your challenge. Pick a recent setback, a rejection, a financial hit, a plan gone awry, and dissect it like a Stoic. Grab a notebook and list 3 unexpected gifts it gave you. Maybe that job application that went nowhere forced you to network, leading to a mentorship you'd never have sought. Maybe the argument with your partner revealed a boundary you'd been too timid to voice. The exercise isn't about downplaying the pain, it's about reclaiming the narrative. When you start mining obstacles for their hidden ore, something shifts. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance and start recognizing yourself as an alchemist, someone who can transmute leaden moments into golden growth. The next time you hit a wall, remember, walls aren't just barriers, they're blueprints. They show you where to build a door. Gratitude in Stoicism isn't about plastering a smile over life's difficulties, it's a radical act of reclamation. A way to disarm desire's grip by fully owning what you already have. Seneca, who navigated the extremes of Roman wealth and exile, wrote letters thanking friends for modest gifts, not because he lacked ambition, but because he understood a profound truth. He who is not satisfied with a little is satisfied with nothing. Imagine standing in a downpour, cursing the rain, then suddenly noticing how it quenches the earth, fills the rivers, turns dust into life. Nothing about the storm changes, but your relationship to it does. That's Stoic gratitude, a shift from craving what's absent to celebrating what's present, however ordinary. Consider the modern equivalent. You're stuck in a long grocery line, tapping your foot impatiently, when you catch sight of the overflowing shelves around you, the ripe fruit, the fresh bread, the simple miracle of abundance at your fingertips. That pause, that recognition, is gratitude in action. It doesn't erase the weight, but it reframes it. Suddenly, you're no longer a victim of delay. You're a participant in a privilege most humans across history never knew. The Stoics practiced this deliberately. Seneca would dine on hard bread and water for days, not to punish himself, but to reawaken appreciation for life's baseline comforts. Set aside certain days, he advised, to be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare. Why? Because absence sharpens presence. You don't cherish light until you've sat in darkness. Here's how to weave this into daily life. Each evening, list 3 mundane blessings, not the obvious ones like health or family, but the easily overlooked. The way sunlight slants through your window at noon, the hum of your refrigerator, a luxury to billions, even the ache in your muscles after a workout, proof of a body that moves. The magic lies in specificity. I'm grateful for my bed is vague. I'm grateful for the way my pillow cradles my head after midnight. Anchors the feeling in sensory detail, making the ordinary extraordinary. Over time, this ritual does something remarkable. It rewires your attention. Desires don't vanish, but they lose their urgency. Why pine for a fancier car when you're truly seeing the miracle of the one that carries you now? The psychological alchemy here is subtle but powerful. Gratitude doesn't just highlight what you have, it exposes the illusion that happiness lives in the next acquisition. Epictetus, born into slavery, put it bluntly, wealth consists not in having great possessions but in having few wants. He wasn't preaching poverty, he was pointing to the freedom that comes when you stop outsourcing your peace to externals. Try this experiment. Next time envy flares a friend's vacation photos, a neighbor's new kitchen, pause and name 3 things their privilege can't buy. The way your child's laughter sounds in the morning, the quiet satisfaction of a project well done, the unearned kindness of a stranger last Tuesday. You'll notice something. Those treasures are already yours. They can't be replicated or outshone because they're woven into the fabric of your singular life. This practice reaches its peak when applied to life's irritations. The Stoics loved turning obstacles upside down. A delayed train becomes time to read. A noisy neighbor becomes a test of focus. Even grief, when approached with gratitude for what was loved rather than bitterness for what was lost, softens into something bearable. Marcus Aurelius, who buried 8 children, wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." Notice he didn't say, "if things go well." The privilege exists independent of circumstance. So tonight, before sleep, ask yourself, what tiny, unfancy gift did today bring that I almost missed? The steam rising from your coffee cup, the way your dog sighed as it curled at your feet, these aren't small things. They're the atoms of joy, the ones we overlook while scanning the horizon for some grander happiness. But here's the secret the Stoics knew: the horizon never gets closer. Real peace starts when you stop chasing it and realize it's been pooling around you all along. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who knew the weight of chains, both literal and emotional, offered a simple yet piercing metaphor for letting go. If you break a vase, would you glue it back together just to break it again each time you touched it? His point wasn't about pottery, it was about the futility of clinging to what's already shattered. Every moment spent grieving a broken vase is a moment stolen from shaping the clay of your present. The past, by its very nature, is unchangeable. The Stoics didn't deny its pain, they rejected the self-inflicted torture of reopening healed wounds. Imagine carrying a sack of rocks, each one engraved with a regret: if only I'd said this, why didn't I do that? The weight isn't in the rocks themselves, but in your refusal to set them down. Consider the story of Thomas Edison's laboratory fire in 1914. Flames consumed years of research, prototypes, and irreplaceable notes. Standing in the smoldering ruins, the 67-year-old inventor told his son, "There's value in disaster. All our mistakes are burned up, now we can start fresh." Within weeks, he'd rebuilt, and within months, his team invented the phonograph. Edison embodied the Stoic ethos. The fire wasn't his to control, his response was. He could have spent years mourning the lost work. Instead, he treated the ashes as fertilizer for what grew next. This isn't about dismissing grief or pretending the past doesn't shape us. It's about recognizing the difference between honoring a scar and picking at it. Think of a river. You can't reverse its flow, but you can choose whether to drown in its currents or let them carry you toward new shores. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled Rome amid constant war and personal loss, wrote, "The past is in its grave, not to erase its memory, but to free himself from its haunting." Here's a practice to make this tangible. Tonight, take a sheet of paper and write a letter to one past regret, a missed opportunity, a harsh word, a betrayal you can't undo. Pour out everything you've recycled in your mind. Then, light a match and watch the edges curl into smoke. The act isn't magical, it's declarative. You're not burning the past, you're burning your allegiance to it. Like Edison's lab, the ashes become space for something new. What makes this Stoic approach so liberating is its honesty. It doesn't ask you to pretend the vase was never broken, only to stop cutting your hands on the shards. The past isn't your enemy, your refusal to release it is. So ask yourself, what's one rock you've been carrying that's too heavy to hold any longer, and what might bloom in the space where it used to be? Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality," a razor-sharp observation about how future anxiety multiplies our pain long before events unfold. The Stoics recognized this peculiar human habit of borrowing trouble from tomorrow, then paying interest on it today with endless what-ifs. but they also offered an antidote, Premeditatio Praesentis, or the premeditation of the present, a practice of anchoring yourself so fully in the now that future storms lose their power to capsize you. Picture standing on a train platform, mentally rehearsing every possible delay, missed connection, and professional consequence of being late. Your body tenses as if these scenarios are real, your breath shallows, your palms sweat. Yet the train hasn't even arrived. That's future anxiety in action, suffering disasters that exist solely in your mind's theater. The Stoic remedy begins with a simple but radical shift, treating the present moment as your only true territory. Imagine your mind as a castle with drawbridges constantly lowered for invading what-ifs to storm in. Premeditatio Praesentis raises those bridges, stationing guards at the gates of your attention. When a worry about next month's bills arises, you acknowledge it. There's future anxiety. Then gently return to what's before you. The warmth of your coffee cup, the rhythm of your typing, the way sunlight patterns the floor. This isn't avoidance, it's sovereignty. You're not denying potential challenges, you're refusing to let them colonize moments where they don't belong. Marcus Aurelius modeled this during his military campaigns, writing, "Confine yourself to the present." Amid the chaos of war, he trained himself to focus only on the duty at hand, inspecting troops, dictating letters, even resting, without projecting into hypothetical battles. Modern life offers less dramatic but equally potent applications. That creeping dread before a medical test result. Notice how it pulls you from reading your child a bedtime story. The sleepless nights over a quarterly review. Observe how they steal your capacity to enjoy a quiet dinner. Future anxiety doesn't just distort tomorrow, it robs today. Here's your challenge. For one day, carry a notepad and tally each time you catastrophize the future. No judgment, just observation. You might mark when you mentally rewrite a work email 10 times fearing misinterpretation, or when you skip a friend's call anticipating awkwardness. The goal isn't to eliminate these thoughts, that's impossible, but to spot their frequency. You'll likely discover how much mental real estate you've leased to tenants who haven't arrived yet. Seneca's insight about suffering twice reveals the absurd math of future anxiety. If the feared event never occurs, you've suffered needlessly. If it does occur, you've suffered in advance, doubling the pain. The Stoic alternative: prepare practically but refuse to pre-live emotionally. Pack an umbrella for rain, but don't let forecast clouds block today's sun. This balanced approach honors reality without mortgaging your peace to possibilities. Try this grounding exercise when future worries arise. Plant your feet firmly and name 5 sensory details around you: the hum of appliances, the texture of your shirt, the scent of the air. Then ask, right now, in this moment, am I safe, fed, sheltered? Most future anxiety collapses under the weight of a fully inhabited present. The bills may come due, the diagnosis may arrive, the conflict may ignite, but none of that is happening now. And now is the only place where life can actually be lived. What makes this practice so transformative is its quiet rebellion against modern culture's obsession with forecasting. Productivity gurus urge us to plan 5 years ahead, while algorithms profit from our doom scrolling. The Stoics offer a counterweight, the liberating truth that the future isn't a place you can inhabit, no matter how fiercely you worry about it. The only ground you ever stand on is today. Walk it fully, and you'll find tomorrow's path reveals itself when you arrive, not a moment sooner. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who valued discipline above all, offered a surprising piece of wisdom about something we rarely question: our own speech. "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth," he said, "so we can listen twice as much as we speak." At first glance, that might sound like simple etiquette advice, but dig deeper, and you'll find a radical tool for emotional balance. The Stoics saw speech not just as communication, but as energy. Every word spoken is energy expended. Every opinion shared is a piece of inner peace potentially surrendered. Imagine your mind as a still pond. Each unnecessary word is a pebble tossed in, rippling the surface. Now picture modern life, where social media compels us to weigh in on every controversy, where small talk fills every silence like background noise, where we narrate our lives in real time as if existence unpraised loses its value. The pond isn't just rippled, it's perpetually storm-tossed. There's a reason Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations as private journals rather than public manifestos. His deepest reflections weren't performative. They were sacred spaces where thought could mature without the distortion of outside approval or debate. Contrast that with today's digital arena, where half-formed thoughts are launched like trial balloons, subject to instant praise or attack. Every tweet, every reactive comment, every "just my take" post extracts a toll, not just in time, but in the fragmentation of attention and the erosion of emotional resilience. The Stoics would spot the irony. We curate our external image while neglecting the inner citadel that truly sustains us. This isn't about condemning conversation or connection. It's about recognizing that speech, like any powerful tool, requires discernment. Epictetus proposed a litmus test. Is this necessary? Is it true? Is it kind? 3 filters that, if applied, would silence 90% of modern communication. Think of the last argument you witnessed online, how much of it crossed wires rather than built bridges. Or recall a time you vented about a problem, only to feel emptier afterward, as if the act of articulating the complaint amplified its weight. The Stoic alternative. Letting silence compost raw emotion into wisdom. When offended, instead of firing back, sit with the sting until it reveals its lesson. When proud, let the achievement settle into your bones before sharing it, lest applause dilute its meaning. Here's a challenge for one day: practice intentional silence, not monastic vow of silence austerity, but conscious restraint. Before speaking or posting, pause and ask, does this serve? Does it clarify? Does it nourish? You'll likely notice 2 things. First, how much of your speech is habitual filling air, seeking validation, or avoiding discomfort. Second, how silence creates space for richer observation. The colleague you'd normally interrupt reveals unexpected depth when you truly listen. The sunset you'd instinctively photograph becomes more vivid when you're not framing it for an audience. Even solitude feels different when you're not mentally drafting its caption. The real test comes in conflict. When baited, the Stoic doesn't retreat into passive avoidance but chooses strategic silence, not as surrender but as high ground. Picture a heated meeting where insults fly. The reflexive move is to volley back to win. The Stoic move: let the silence after your opponent's outburst stretch just long enough for their own words to echo back at them. Often, the most powerful response is to leave reckless speech unanswered, like letting a spark fall onto wet stone. This isn't repression, it's the art of letting trivial fires burn themselves out. Try an experiment this week. Designate a low communication day. Turn off non-essential notifications, resist opinion sharing, and observe the mental quiet that emerges. You might discover what the Stoics knew: that silence isn't emptiness, but a vessel for deeper connection to your own thoughts and the world around you. After all, we don't remember the ancients for their tweets or small talk. We remember them for what they chose to say and how much they chose not to. Marcus Aurelius often wrote about standing by a river and watching the water flow, how each ripple comes and goes, never to return. He called it a reminder that life, too, is a series of moments rushing past, each one vanishing as soon as it arrives. That's the heart of accepting impermanence, not just acknowledging change but befriending it. Imagine clutching a fistful of sand. The tighter you grip, the faster it slips through your fingers. But open your palm and the sand rests there, at least for a while. That's the paradox. The more we resist life's transience, the more it hurts. The more we relax into it, the more we can actually hold. Consider the modern workplace, where careers no longer follow straight paths but zigzag through industries. 20 years ago, someone might have spent decades climbing a single corporate ladder. Today, that ladder might vanish overnight. Restructuring, automation, shifting markets. The Stoic approach: see the ladder for what it always was, temporary. Not to dismiss ambition, but to anchor it in reality. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet he wrote, "All things fade into the storied past, and in a little while are shrouded in oblivion." Even his power, his legacy, was fleeting. If an emperor could accept that, what freedom might we find in releasing our white-knuckled grip on how things should be? Here's the practice. Pick one change you've been resisting. Maybe it's your industry's evolution, your child growing up too fast, or your body aging. Now, trace its inevitability like a scientist studying erosion. That job you love. Industries have risen and fallen since the first loom was smashed in the Industrial Revolution. Your child's childhood. Every parent in history has faced the bittersweet truth that first steps lead to last goodbyes. Your youth. The Romans built monuments to outlast themselves, yet even marble crumbles. This isn't pessimism, it's liberation. When you stop fighting impermanence, you start dancing with it. Think of autumn leaves. Do trees mourn their falling? No. They let go in a blaze of color, knowing decay feeds new growth. Your career pivot isn't a derailment, it's the soil for skills you can't yet imagine. Your child's independence isn't loss, it's the proof you nurtured resilience. Even wrinkles aren't betrayal, they're the rings of a life well lived. The Stoics didn't deny grief in transitions, they simply refused to be surprised by them. As Marcus wrote, loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight. Try this reframe today. Find something in your life that feels fixed, a routine, a relationship, even a favorite coffee mug. Then list 3 ways it's already changing, however subtly. The mug will chip, the routine will adapt, the relationship will deepen or fade, not to provoke anxiety, but to awaken appreciation. That morning coffee tastes richer when you know the cup won't always be there. The laughter with a friend rings clearer when you remember time is borrowing them to you. Impermanence isn't the thief of joy, it's the quiet curator of meaning, reminding us to drink deeply while the glass is full. Because here's the secret the Stoics knew: the only thing more exhausting than change is pretending it won't come. The river keeps flowing, but you get to choose. Will you stand on the bank, screaming at the current, or step into the water and let it carry you somewhere new? Anger, Seneca wrote, is like a ruin that crashes down upon what it is built upon, a fire that burns the hand of the one who wields it. The Stoics didn't view anger as a natural reaction, but as a failure of reason, a momentary collapse of our better judgment. Picture this: you're mid-argument, your pulse pounding, your vision narrowing as heat floods your chest. In that moment, anger feels powerful, even righteous. But the Stoics would point to the irony. You've handed control to the very person or event that upset you. As Seneca observed, no pestilence has been more costly to the human race. Not because anger is evil, but because it's counterproductive. It clouds judgment, exhausts the spirit, and often escalates conflicts it claims to resolve. The Stoic antidote begins with a pause, not passive silence, but a deliberate space between provocation and response. Imagine your anger as a speeding train. The pause is the emergency brake, giving you time to step onto the platform and ask, is this truly unfair, or does it just feel that way? This distinction is crucial. Anger often masquerades as justice, convincing us we're righting a wrong when we're really nursing a wound. Marcus Aurelius, who faced constant political betrayals, trained himself to interrogate first impressions. What is this thing stripped of its story? A coworker takes credit for your idea. The raw fact is words on a slide. The theft is your interpretation. That gap between event and judgment is where Stoic reason operates. Next, assess proportion. Ancient Stoics used a simple scale. If the offense is minor, like a rude comment, anger is disproportionate, like using a sledgehammer to crack an egg. If it's major, like genuine betrayal, anger still serves no purpose. Clear-headed action does. Epictetus advised imagining how a wise person would respond, not to mimic them, but to reveal how often anger stems from ego rather than principle. Try this reframe when someone cuts you off in traffic. Instead of, "How dare they?" ask, "What if they're rushing to the hospital?" The event hasn't changed, but your relationship to it has. Now, the most transformative step, tracking your anger like a scientist. For 1 week, keep a log with 3 columns: trigger, initial reaction, and Stoic reassessment. Maybe on Tuesday, your partner forgets to run an errand and you snap. The log forces you to dissect it. Was the errand urgent, or did their forgetfulness prick your need to feel prioritized? Over time, patterns emerge. You'll notice how often anger masks vulnerability, fear of disrespected, fear of losing control. Seneca saw this clearly. Anger is temporary madness, he wrote, because it distorts reality to fit our wounds. But here's where Stoicism surprises. It doesn't demand you eradicate anger. It invites you to outgrow it, like a child who stops tantrums not because they're punished, but because they develop better tools. When a colleague undermines you, instead of lashing out, you might calmly correct the record in an email CC'd to the team. The injustice is addressed, your dignity intact, and no bridges burned. That's the Stoic ideal, not passivity, but precision. Anger becomes like an old coat you once wore everywhere, now hanging unused in the closet because you found something better suited to the weather. Try this experiment. Next time anger flares, before speaking or acting, whisper Seneca's question to yourself. Does this anger help the situation or just my ego? The answer will often startle you into clarity, because the goal isn't to never feel anger. It's to never let anger feel you. Marcus Aurelius often pictured the mind as a fortified citadel, an inner stronghold where reason reigns undisturbed by external chaos. He wrote, "You can retreat into yourself anytime. No place is more peaceful or free than your own soul." This wasn't poetic escapism, it was a battle-tested strategy. As emperor, he faced wars, plagues, and betrayals, yet his private journals reveal a man who'd mastered the art of inner retreat. Think of your own mind as that citadel. Its walls aren't made of stone, but of discernment, the ability to separate what's yours to carry from what's not. Modern life bombards us with demands, endless notifications, guilt trips disguised as invitations, the pressure to be always on. The inner citadel is where you reclaim sovereignty. It's not about isolation, it's about filtration. Imagine your energy as a treasure stored in the citadel's vault. Every yes to a draining commitment, every hour lost to mindless scrolling, is like leaving the gates unguarded. But when you learn to say no, not with resentment, but with the calm clarity of a sentry at his post, you're not being selfish. You're defending what matters. Epictetus, who knew the sting of slavery, put it bluntly. If you want to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in extraneous matters. In modern terms, stop letting others define what deserves your attention. That colleague's drama, the algorithm's outrage bait, the societal pressure to hustle, none get past your gates unless you lower the drawbridge. Here's how to fortify your citadel in practice. Next time you're overwhelmed, close your eyes and visualize a literal fortress. See the stressors as figures outside the walls, some shouting demands, others hurling insults. Notice how their noise fades when you don't engage. Your breath steadies, your shoulders drop. This isn't denial, it's discernment. The bills, the deadlines, the conflicts, they're real, but they don't belong in the inner sanctum where your peace lives. Marcus Aurelius modeled this during military campaigns, writing, "The mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to its acting." Even in war, he preserved a space where his thoughts weren't hostages to circumstance. Modern boundaries are the citadel's architecture. Saying no to that extra project isn't laziness, it's aligning your time with your values. Muting toxic social media threads isn't avoidance, it's refusing to let strangers storm your mental gates. Even small acts like not checking email after 8 or skipping gossip that leaves a sour aftertaste are bricks in the wall. The Stoics knew this. What you exclude defines you as much as what you invite. Try this tonight. List 3 energy leaks in your life obligations that drain more than they give, people who leave you depleted, habits that fragment your focus. Then imagine your citadel's drawbridge. How might you raise it just a little around these, not with drama, but with quiet conviction? Because the ultimate power of the inner citadel isn't its impenetrability, it's the freedom to choose who and what deserves entry. And that choice, as Marcus knew, is the last true frontier no external force can ever conquer. Self-denial in Stoicism isn't about punishment or austerity for its own sake. It's a training ground for desire, a way to prove to yourself that you're more than your cravings. Musonius Rufus, the Stoic teacher who turned exile into a classroom, put it plainly: how can a person who can't endure discomfort ever expect to control their own mind? He wasn't advocating for a life of deprivation, but for periodic resistance to luxury's gravitational pull. Picture a muscle. It grows not when it's constantly used, but when it's stressed and allowed to recover. Your willpower works the same way. The occasional no to comfort, whether it's skipping dessert, walking in the rain without an umbrella, or sleeping on a firmer mattress, isn't self-punishment. It's strength training for the soul. Modern life offers endless chances to practice this. Imagine committing to a spending fast for a week. No impulsive online purchases, no gourmet coffee runs, no upgrades to things that already work. At first, you might notice a gnawing emptiness, a habit of reaching for your phone to scroll sales or check delivery apps. That discomfort is the point. It reveals how much of your behavior runs on autopilot, how often you confuse want with need. The Stoics weren't anti-comfort, they were anti-dependency. Seneca, despite his wealth, regularly ate only bread and slept on a hard bed to remind himself, "I possess, but I am not possessed." Here's the subtle shift. Self-denial isn't about eliminating pleasure, it's about eliminating slavery to pleasure. Think of it like intermittent fasting for the mind. Just as skipping meals heightens appreciation for food, skipping small luxuries, a streaming binge, a midday snack, even a hot shower re-awakens you to their true value. The goal isn't to live permanently without these things, but to break the assumption that they're essential to your happiness. Epictetus, born into slavery, framed it as liberation. No person is free who isn't master of themselves. Try this experiment. Pick one harmless pleasure, your morning latte, the snooze button, background TV noise, and deny it for 3 days. Observe what arises. Maybe frustration, maybe rationalizations, "I deserve this," maybe even creativity, finding new ways to start your day. That's the hidden gift of self-denial. It doesn't just reveal your attachments, it reveals your adaptability. When you realize you can thrive without the thing you thought you needed, You reclaim a quiet power, the kind that stays cool when life takes unexpected turns. Musonius took this further, suggesting we occasionally invite discomfort voluntarily, like wearing lighter clothes in winter or eating simpler meals. Not to prove our toughness, but to dissolve the illusion that ease equals safety. Modern equivalents might include taking the stairs instead of the elevator, or leaving your phone at home during a walk. These small acts are rehearsals for life's inevitable disruptions, the missed flights, the broken AC, the financial setbacks. By choosing discomfort sometimes, you ensure it never chooses you. The ultimate test comes when you reintroduce the denied pleasure. That first sip of coffee after a week without it. It tastes richer, not because the coffee changed, but because your relationship to it did. You're no longer a passive consumer, you're a conscious participant. That's the Stoic paradox. By occasionally saying no to what you love, you learn to love it more deeply, not with the desperation of lack, but with the gratitude of choice. Because true freedom isn't having everything you want, it's wanting nothing you can't walk away from. Stoic compassion might seem like a paradox. How can you care deeply while maintaining emotional detachment? The answer lies in Hierocle's ancient concept of the circles of concern. Picture a series of concentric rings radiating outward from a center point. At the core is you, surrounded by rings representing family, friends, community, and ultimately all humanity. The Stoic practice isn't about shrinking those circles, but about consciously tending to each one without losing yourself in the process. Imagine a friend going through a divorce. Emotional enmeshment would have you drowning in their grief, staying up nights ruminating on their pain until their struggle becomes your own. Stoic compassion, though, asks you to stand steady in your own circle, while extending a hand, offering practical help or a listening ear without letting their storm flood your inner citadel. This balance becomes clearer when you contrast Stoic compassion with what it isn't. Enmeshment blurs boundaries like a surgeon who catches their patient's illness. True compassion, as Epictetus noted, is more like a lighthouse, offering guidance and warmth without being swept away by the crashing waves. Consider a nurse in an oncology ward. If she internalizes every patient's suffering, she'll burn out within months. But if she detaches completely, her care becomes clinical and cold, the Stoic middle path. She acknowledges the pain, provides skilled care, and goes home to rest, knowing her strength lies in being present tomorrow for the next person in need. Her empathy doesn't vanish, it becomes sustainable. Here's how to practice this with someone who challenges you. Start by visualizing those concentric circles. Notice where this person resides, perhaps in the friends or family ring. When they share a problem, listen fully, but mentally place one hand on your heart and the other on your solar plexus. This physical cue reminds you, their pain is real, but it's not mine to absorb. Offer specific help instead of vague sympathy. I can babysit Tuesday so you can attend therapy, not I feel awful for you. This shifts the dynamic from emotional merging to empowered support. The Stoics weren't advocating coldness, they were prescribing clarity. Marcus Aurelius, while ruling an empire plagued by war and plague, wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." In modern terms, the antidote to others' chaos isn't more chaos, it's unwavering stability. Think of a tree in a storm. Its branches sway to avoid snapping, but its roots hold firm. Your friend's crisis doesn't require your collapse to prove your love. Sometimes the most compassionate act is simply being the calm they can't yet find. Try this today. Pick one difficult relationship where you habitually take on the other person's emotions. Before your next interaction, set a quiet intention. I will help without inheriting. Afterward, note where you succeeded and where old patterns crept in. No judgment, just observation. over time you'll discover a profound truth. You can love someone deeply without needing their pain to certify your care. That's the alchemy of Stoic compassion, transforming empathy from a liability into a grounded, enduring force. Morning light filters through your window, and before the day's chaos begins, you have a choice: to let the world dictate your state of mind or to anchor yourself first in intention. This is where Stoic rituals shine, not as rigid routines, but as gentle fences against the wildfire of unchecked emotions. Epictetus, the philosopher who turned adversity into wisdom, insisted that no great thing is created suddenly, comparing self-mastery to the slow, deliberate growth of a vine. Discipline, he taught, isn't about grand gestures but the quiet consistency of daily practice. Picture two versions of yourself: one who wakes up scrambling for a phone, diving headfirst into emails and headlines, and another who carves out 20 minutes to sit with a journal, a deep breath, and a single question: what will I protect my peace from today? The difference between these two mornings isn't time, it's intentionality. A Stoic morning ritual might begin with negative visualization, not to dwell on fear, but to disarm it. Close your eyes and imagine losing something you cherish: your job, your health, a loved one. Sit with that hollow feeling for just 10 seconds, then open your eyes. Notice how the light looks brighter, the coffee richer, the ordinary gifts of your life suddenly vivid. This practice isn't morbid, it's an antidote to taking things for granted. Follow it with a gratitude list, but with a twist: focus on the mundane. The hum of a working refrigerator, the way your socks hug your feet. These tiny anchors ground you before the day's storms arrive. Evenings, meanwhile, are for reflection. Seneca called it his daily audit, a time to ask, where did I stumble, where did I rise? Not to self-flagellate, but to course correct. Imagine reviewing your day like a gardener tending plants, not yanking weeds in frustration, but gently noting what needs more sunlight, what needs pruning. A sample entry might read, "Today, I reacted defensively when my partner criticized my cooking. Upon reflection, I felt embarrassed about burning the meal, and that shame disguised itself as anger." This isn't journaling for posterity, it's journaling for presence. The act of translating messy emotions into words forces clarity, like straining tea leaves from water. For those new to Stoic rituals, here's a challenge. Pick one practice: morning meditation, evening journaling, or a midday pause to interrogate your emotions, and commit to it for 21 days. Not because 3 weeks magically forms a habit, but because it's long enough to notice subtle shifts. Maybe you'll catch yourself sighing instead of snapping during a traffic jam. Maybe you'll pause before reflexively saying yes to a draining request. These small victories are the vines Epictetus described, growing stronger with each daily twist around the trellis of discipline. The power of routine lies in its repetition, not its complexity. You needn't rise at dawn or fill pages with eloquent prose. Even 5 minutes spent sitting with Marcus Aurelius' question, "What is it in myself that I must now strengthen?" It can become a bulwark against the tide of reactivity, because rituals aren't about controlling life, they're about remembering who's at the helm when the waves get rough. The storm will come either way. The difference is whether you meet it with a steady hand or a scattered mind. What if everything you've been chasing, control over external events, validation from others, immunity to pain, was actually the very thing keeping you from real peace? The Stoic techniques we've explored aren't just tools, they're invitations to a fundamental shift in how you inhabit your life. Emotional detachment isn't a cold withdrawal from the world, it's the ultimate act of reclaiming your sovereignty. Picture a kite. The string isn't its prison, it's the source of its flight. Without that tension, the kite would plummet or be lost to the wind. Your emotions work the same way. Detachment gives them just enough space to soar without being torn apart by every storm. This journey through Stoicism reveals a paradox. The less you try to control, the more power you actually wield. When you stop demanding that life bend to your will, you gain the resilience to meet whatever comes. Think of the last time you white-knuckled through a situation, maybe obsessing over a text message or rehearsing arguments in your head. Now imagine approaching that same scenario with Stoic detachment, observing the emotions without being hijacked by them, responding instead of reacting, choosing your battles rather than being drafted into every skirmish. That's the transformation these techniques offer, not a life without feeling, but a life where feelings no longer hold you hostage. Seneca, the philosopher who tutored an emperor and weathered exile, captured this perfectly. True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future. His words cut to the heart of Stoic wisdom. Peace isn't found in rearranging the world to suit your preferences. It's found in mastering your relationship to the world as it is. The colleague who undermines you, the traffic jam that ruins your plans, the unexpected bill, these aren't interruptions to your peace. They're the raw materials for building it. Every irritation is a chance to practice patience. Every loss is an invitation to gratitude for what remains. But here's the crucial takeaway. Stoicism isn't a philosophy to admire, it's one to live. Today, choose just one technique to weave into your days. Maybe it's the Stoic pause before reacting to a provocation. Maybe it's negative visualization to savor ordinary gifts. Or perhaps it's the nightly journaling ritual to distill wisdom from chaos. Don't overwhelm yourself trying to overhaul everything at once. Lasting change grows like a tree, one ring at a time. As you leave this video, remember, the goal isn't to become unshakable. It's to discover that you were never as fragile as you feared. The storms will still come. But now you'll have an anchor. If this resonated with you, join our community, hit subscribe, and let's keep walking this path together. Because the real power of Stoicism isn't just in reading about it, it's in practicing it, stumbling and rising again, one mindful breath at a